Hello, everybody. How is it going? Welcome to episode 19 of the CertiCraft podcast. Almost at 20. It's pretty sweet. CertiCraft is a series where we talk about the state of the legal craft cannabis industry. What's going well, what's not going well, what needs to change to make things better for small scale producers across Canada. Today, I'm really excited to be talking with a few really awesome people who I'll introduce in a few moments about BC's proposed direct delivery program. I am Sami. I'm the CEO of CertiCraft. We are on a mission to help craft cannabis producers transition into and thrive within the regulated market in Canada. We primarily do so through a compliance platform that makes the ridiculously tedious cannabis regulations really easy to stay on top of. I guess the last thing I want to mention, I want to start doing this year that I didn't do last year, is just to acknowledge the land that I live on here. I get to live, work, and play on the traditional ancestral territories of the Sinaiaks people, and they were all murdered for the most part. It's pretty fucking sad. The settlers here killed, there's a scalping program, and thousands of people in the local population have went down to literal just a handful. And we're on the extinction list by the Canadian government for a while until they won a landmark case a few years back here in the BC Supreme Court to be reinstated as actual people who are still here. And yeah, I think it's good to take the moment to just kind of reflect on how privileged we are to not have to deal with genocide that's being undertaken against us. So on that sad note, let's shift to a very different type of sad note, which is how the BC government has been undertaking direct delivery so far. I'd like to first introduce our three guests here. And then once they've each introduced themselves, I'm going to take a moment to kind of just give everybody context on direct delivery and what is going on there, why BC decided to do it, and kind of a bit of an update on how it's been approached so far, and then we'll get into the discussion that we're going to have. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce to you Janine, Sydney, and Colin. Thank you so much for being here, all three of you guys. It's honored to have lovely folks like yourself coming to share your thoughts on this very hot and critical topic. Why don't we go in like clockwise order? So Janine, I see you in the top left corner here. Do you want to introduce yourself first?
Hi, my name is Janine Davis. I work with joint venture Craft Cannabis as the director of sales. And our primary focus has been getting micro cultivators to market. So we're a package processor, a toll processor, so to speak. We charge a flat rate fee to package for our clients, and we get their cannabis to market for them. And then I communicate with retailers and help them sell through.
Awesome. Thanks, Janine. Sydney, what about yourself?
Hi, I'm Sydney. I would also like to acknowledge that I am speaking on the traditional territory of the Sinaiaks people. Very well put, Sami. I won't repeat everything you've said, but I appreciate all of those great words. I currently manage 2 cannabis stores in the rural areas of the Kootenays, the Green Pineapple cannabis stores. We have a ton of more stores coming on the way, so we're constantly busy opening our new stores. Yeah, I have a lot of knowledge about the rural cannabis retail scene, so I'm super excited to be a part of this call.
Awesome. Thanks, Sydney. And Colin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Colin Bambury. I'm primarily the head of marketing, full-time marketer, part-time bud tender at THC Canada. THC is a cannabis store that's been around since the legacy days. And yeah, I primarily do that. I also founded a company called AdCan, which is really focused on it's a publication focused on cannabis marketing. So I publish a lot of articles through that. And yeah, I've just generally been in the cannabis industry for about 6 years at this point. And I'm really, passionate about the topic that we're talking about today and all things to do with cannabis.
Awesome. That's amazing. Well, thank you guys for being here. Like I said, I'm going to start with a little intro on like why BC chose to implement this direct delivery program, why we have these 3 guests here today, and then I'm going to essentially turn the floor over so that our 3 guests can give their perspective on how they're seeing BCLDB and their work in rolling out this this direct delivery program. So, as I'm sure many of you guys who are here in the audience who are licensed producers know, distribution has really sucked for small scale producers. There's been a lot of regulatory decisions made on both provincial and federal levels that have really created huge obstacles, huge barriers that have made the getting your license part the easy part. The hard part is then actually making sales that allow you to thrive and be viable, be able to take your family on a vacation in the summer, just live a life that that is a reasonable one to want to live. And a lot of people have really struggled. And BC, the Cannabis Secretariat's office, they their role has, and I might not be 100% accurate, so take the next statement with a grain of salt. Their role, from my perspective, is essentially to keep an eye on the cannabis industry, see what is going well, what's not going well, and make recommendations on what needs to change to facilitate things for the local BC industry. And they really do care. Like, that's the sense that I get from them, that they really do care. And they said that they think two really critical programs to address the distribution challenges that are making it so that small scale producers cannot viably get to market and thrive is to allow for farm gate, which is a different program we're not talking about today, that allows you to sell product from your own facility. And another is direct delivery, which would allow producers to sell directly to retailers without having to go through a middleman, that middleman being the BCLDB, the distribution board here in BC. And myself and many other people in the cannabis industry agree that that's one of the most critical things that can bring radical change, because a big issue has been that the BCLDB, like they don't have like a background in cannabis. This is new to them, so they don't understand what consumers want, and their experience with alcohol has in some ways translated to cannabis, but not entirely. And there's been a lot of struggles and a lot of situations where like a producer wants to sell to a retail store that's literally 10 kilometers away and can't, because of all kinds of bureaucratic challenges and logistical issues in the way. And so so that's kind of was the impetus for direct delivery, and it was assigned to the BCLDB to undertake. And unfortunately, they don't seem to really care about getting input from the industry. That's kind of been the takeaway that many people, every single advocacy organization in BC agrees on this. They don't really want to listen. They have their ideas on what's going to work, and they're pretty much refusing to actually engage the industry, which is pretty fucked up, because the reason that we're in this place in the first place is because they didn't engage the industry. And so it's kind of weird that the solution is again going to be a solution where the industry is not actively being engaged. And there's a lot of people who are very, very angry about this, because this is a life or death matter for most of these businesses, these small scale businesses. And the fact that they're not actually having serious discourse where they're setting their ego aside and just listening, that's really, really disappointing. And so Janine and I were talking a few months ago, and we were kind of having a long discussion about kind of the various pitfalls that we see of this program, that they're not willing to test, not willing to pilot, not willing to test their assumptions that they have. They're in many cases false assumptions that they have. And we kind of realized, hey, we could put together a great podcast episode to really highlight some of these challenges that we see happening. And so we put together this episode where we had Janine representing the production side, Sydney representing rural retail side, and Colin representing urban retail side, so that we can have all these different perspectives that can come to the table, that all represent small scale Canadian businesses. Yeah, I think that'll kind of be it for what I'm going to say, because I really want today to be focused on what Sydney, Colin, and Janine think. They're our guests here today. And so I'm going to pause there. Actually, before I hand the floor over to one of you three to jump in here, to our audience, we have a chat. If you have any comments you want to share, please be active there. I see we already have 18 comments there, so that's amazing. You guys are already taking advantage of that. If you have any questions, we have a different dedicated questions tab. Go ask your questions there. Excuse me. At the end, we'll have 15 minutes where we'll go through all the questions. You could upvote other questions that you like, and we will go through them in order of popularity, and hopefully get through all your questions. So with that all being said, Colin, Sydney, Janine, I know there's there's this huge preamble here. Do any of you guys feel called to kind of jump in and start sharing some perspective that you have on either distribution as it exists right now, or the proposed rollout of direct delivery and some of the challenges you see there?
Well, I just think there's very different reasons why people would want to do direct delivery. The reason why I'm so grateful that you built a balanced panel here is Sydney's reasons for needing it are literally going to be life or death for her store having inventory, whereas Colin's reasons could be more around building relationships. So I think I would actually just, I would really like Sydney to speak to some of the logistical challenges that she's experienced the last 6 weeks and how that could be changed with direct delivery.
Sounds great. Awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks so much, Janine. Yeah, we have been experiencing a lot of challenges through our orders through the LDB. I think it probably started, what was that, back in November or early December with the mudslides and the flooding. We didn't see our orders for 3 weeks. Luckily, our owner actually owns a plane, and we were able to go and rescue some people and save our cannabis and bring it back to our store. If it hadn't been for that, we actually may have had to close down the store for a couple days. Like, it was getting pretty bare bones. And yeah, we were really fortunate to be able to have an opportunity to go and save our cannabis from Vancouver. But I know the story for a lot of the rural stores out here, it was pretty bad for a little bit there. And even since getting that delivery every single week after that, so for the past couple months, our deliveries have just been very inconsistent. We've been having huge delays. Even right now, I am waiting on an order. We don't fully know where it is, but we were supposed to receive it Tuesday morning. It's now Friday morning. There's no way it's getting here today. And our menu currently has 3 indicas on it, like a single gram, a 7 gram, and a 14 gram. So it's like, you know, it comes a point where we don't have product to sell to our customers. So being able to open up something like direct delivery would allow me to at least get some product into the stores that can be sold and make my customers happy. Maybe I don't get my whole order of edibles and drinks and everything, but at least I have flour and fresh flour that my customers get to be happy.
And I'm assuming that the flip side of kind of what you're describing is probably true as well, because there's producers all throughout the Kootenays that probably can't get their shipments to the LDB either, and it's like they have their equivalent delays now. And so if we're talking about a delayed week or two going one way, another delayed week or two coming back that way, when they literally, their facility is 20 kilometers from your store, it's kind of unfortunate.
Oh, no kidding. Well, our customers say it all the time to me, like, can't you just go get it? And I'm like, no, like, not even remotely. But yeah, our customers are baffled by the fact that our cannabis has to go to Vancouver only to then come back to where a lot of it was originally grown. It's honestly, we all end up just laughing about it because it's like, it's so bizarre.
And question for you guys, do you guys know anything about the warehousing that the BC LDB has? Like, do they have like cold temperature warehousing so that the cannabis actually stays fresh, or is it like degrading there as soon as it arrives at their facility because they don't do proper refrigeration?
They have claimed to. I've heard that the trucks and warehouse are temperature sensitive. However, I have never been there to be able to contest that. I don't know.
What does temperature sensitive mean, though?
That
because that doesn't mean cold. Cold is what's important.
I don't believe that Pure Later provides climate-controlled transport for cannabis.
I doubt it.
I don't believe so. I believe that that's untrue. And from a producer's perspective, you know, the benefit and why we're all fighting for direct delivery is really, you know, to protect that product integrity. Because just like this is not a pharmaceutical. This is an agricultural product, despite the fact that they want to treat it like a pharmaceutical, and it degrades. Agricultural products degrade over time. And I find too, in legalization, consumers are really treating it like a pharmaceutical product too. Like, if I go to the store and I buy a basket of raspberries and there's a moldy one in the bottom, I don't do 5 angry posts on Twitter, return it, go drive back to the store, wait in line to return it and get a new thing of raspberries. I pick the moldy one out and I throw it in the bin because it's an agricultural product, right? So, you know, it's really not being treated like one, and the timelines to market reflect that. So, you know, direct delivery could be a solving that, but at the same time, too, there's challenges with it that are going to come in and be financial challenges. So the benefit is protecting the product integrity and getting it quickly out to market. So what I can explain for our micros, their timeline to market, we're usually getting their listings as the weed is curing. It gets directly transferred to our processor. We package it. We have a bi-weekly delivery date that we deliver on, a standing appointment. We can request additional delivery dates if needed. And we're usually getting it to market within 2 weeks of the package date. When we then ship it to BCLDB, we always have to deliver on time. We have to schedule our delivery appointment. We have had pallets of product be taken out of our vehicle and left in the beating sun on a pallet for like 90 minutes in 27-degree weather. But when we did email BCLDB about it, it was addressed. So I don't just want to say that they're not trying, because they are. They're desperately trying to do a better job handling cannabis. And well, I do find the decision makers have come from overweighty foods and companies like that. It's especially frustrating to me to see policies that treat cannabis like a pharmaceutical rather than a perishable good. They have the talent to figure this out.
And Mike West and Andrew Gordon both confirmed that the BCLDB does not have cold climate control. They have room temperatures, what they keep it at. So take that all with a grain of salt, because we're not there. But I know Mike West does a lot of work with distribution for a larger scale producer, so I would trust his opinion. Andrew Gordon, I don't know who you are, so I will not speak to your trustworthiness, but I'm sure you're a lovely fellow. Colin, we haven't really heard much from you here yet. Is there anything that you think would be good to kind of set the table for the conversation about your perspective as an urban retailer?
Yeah, I mean, well, hearing Sydney talk, first of all, I've never been more grateful that my store is like a 15-minute drive from the BCLDB warehouse. Like even when all this was happening and all the distribution was kind of cut off to the interior, we were just counting our blessings. So it's awesome that we could obviously still get our product. And yeah, like thinking about it and hearing your perspective, the way that I think about direct distribution and delivery here is much different than what you're thinking about. And I think it's much more, important, as Janine said, to like the operations of your company. When it comes to me, like I do primarily marketing along with, helping run the store. But when it comes to me, I actually think of it as a marketing opportunity in a lot of ways. And that's obviously a privileged place to be thinking about it, as opposed to like, hey, I just need product to sell my customers. But I get to think of it kind of in that perspective. Just for some context, THC Canada has been around again since around the pre-recreational legalization days around 2016. So THC used to bring customers from all around the province. We still do, from all around the country, to come shop with us. But back in the day, we had lineups, every week. And that was primarily because we had these products and these brands that you couldn't find anywhere else. These were exclusive deals that we had with these producers, strains. They had their own in-house cultivation going on, strains that you couldn't find anywhere else. Concentrate brands like Heavenly Days, these kind of like legacy brands that you really couldn't find at any stores, or really couldn't find at any other stores in the region. So that is really a prospect to me that's super, super exciting, bringing some of that exclusivity, some of that excitement back to the legal market. As a marketer and someone who works in store and talks to these people, like being able to offer them exclusive products and have that excitement back in the store is just something that's very interesting to me. So that's one perspective about how I could think about it. I could even see producers and brands wanting that as well. I mean, I think a lot of in any other, by way of regulation, cannabis has become a consumer packaged good in Canada. In Canada, just, whether we like it or not, it is a prepackaged good. It's treated that way. I think in a lot of other CPG industries, brands really get to choose what storefronts they get to sell their products in. If I'm trying to build a brand and I want my brand associated with certain customers, certain areas, certain storefronts, I get to choose which storefronts I get to sell them in typically. But, as it is now, they're selling to the distribution boards and any store can stock it. Another thing that is very frustrating for me personally, at least, is a lot of the times we have great relationships, existing relationships with these producers where we know they would give us exclusive drops that we could have in our store, but also when things drop and we know it's going to be really good, maybe we've heard word of mouth from other provinces or things like that. A lot of the time in BC, there's like a 2-case limit on these things so that other stores, get a chance. I understand why they do it, but if there's a 2-case limit on something that I would want to buy 50 to 100 cases of, if I could negotiate that relationship directly, it just, I get why they're doing it, but again, it doesn't seem fair to me, fair to my customers, if I can't offer them what they want and what I want to sell them,
Especially if there's like a 2-case limit and there's like 3 stores that want a bunch of it and not many other stores that do. And that producer could sell out their product to those 3 stores. And now with that limit, they're sitting on all this inventory that they can't move because I think the producers themselves have a limit as well on how much they can initially sell before. Like Janine, maybe you can speak to this more. Like what kind of limitations are there right now on producers trying to bring new SKUs to market through the BCLDB? Can you help us understand that?
Well, we've been evolving the process. So would you guys like me to run you through what it's like to get a SKU listed right now and then what could change? Or
I think it'd be great if we did both that and then had Sydney and Colin walk us through the other end. Let's learn what goes on right now. And maybe as you go through it, if you guys can highlight what's really working well about the current system and what's not working well about the current system, I think that would be really, really helpful to just kind of illuminate both myself personally and our audience here at large so we can all be on the same page on the current reality before shifting into more about direct delivery.
Okay, so one thing that I did want to touch on that you had said in your intro was kind of about BCLDB not having cannabis talent. I want to let you know that that's not true. There's a senior category manager in there who has graded more weed than any of us, okay? It's just not shouted from the rooftops. So we also have a dedicated category manager, which Ben and I at Joint Venture and the Cannabis Secretariat and a lot of companies had requested a category manager dedicated to micro cultivators. And we have that with Jessica. And she's done a tremendous job for speeding up the process to get a listing. So I would like to say 1, BCLDB is listening this year in 2021, and 2, I've seen them make significant changes. Now the problem that I do have, Sami, with what you said about there not being cannabis people making cannabis decisions is they have Jessica and Perry and Victoria and Miles who are frontline with all the producers and understand the challenges of moving weed through the system, because trust me, we all tell them all the day when they're talking to producers, and they're not consulting with them. Okay, so the category managers have not at all been consulted on what they think direct delivery should look like, whereas they were the most experienced inside the BCLDB on dealing with producers and getting listings to market and understand the challenges more than anybody within that organization. My understanding is that they've been largely left out of the conversation and that decisions are being made at a higher level where they don't have the knowledge. There's so many different reporting systems and it's very bureaucratic, and I couldn't talk to them because I have to go through my boss type of thing. So that's really never been how the cannabis industry has worked. So that's a huge frustration to even deal with an organization like that. So that's a problem that we need to solve for sure. We need people who are actually experienced giving input on this process. So when I go to get a listing now, if I have a micro cultivator listing, it's going to go to Jessica at BCLDB. So in order to get that listing, I need to have the COA. I need to know the product is safe. I need to know how it tested, and I need to know the dominant terpenes. And then what I'll do is I'll make a case for it. I'll say this fills a gap in your assortment because this is a premium sativa. You don't have many premium sativas. I think we could see decent sales velocity. And I talk about why I see that it fits a gap in the assortment, and I negotiate pricing with them. So then once we have that done, that process can take about a week from when I send in the listing. Okay, at that point, then it's going to get kicked over to registration. Registration could take about another week. Then a PO will be issued. And the POs, there's a weekly review meeting.
And just for anybody listening in, PO means purchase order
from the BCL.
We want to buy this.
Yes. So then they'll issue a purchase order, and then at that point we can set the delivery date to move the product to the DC.
What's the DC?
The distribution center for
Distribution
BCLDB
center.
in Richmond.
As in
yes.
their physical warehouse where they store
Their
the
physical
cannabis.
warehouse,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
So, you know, and at the distribution center, we have to wait on delivery appointments, and it just is what it is. So we were able to get a standing delivery appointment bi-weekly because we're working with over 20 micro cultivators to get to market. So once you secure your delivery appointment, you deliver into the DC, and then we have no eyes on who buys our weed where. This is the craziest part. It's absolutely insane that I'm not allowed to know which stores have stocked our product so that I cannot give them customer service. Because if Colin was to bring in 5 cases of Whitefire gelato from one of our new cultivators, I would want to know that so I can say, hey, Colin, I've got these sell sheets, I've got these digital assets. Let's do a collab with our social media manager, get people into your store. I don't know unless I'm like reaching out to Colin to find out. So that's really frustrating, and that will be solved by direct delivery. And so right now, their initial case pack orders, we went through a period where they were very small. They were only about 50 cases. And then now they're doing more like 100 or 150. So they were really wanting to test these SKUs out and see how they'd perform. So, you know, you can expect to get a case on a very new SKU, anywhere from 50 to 150 cases on an initial order, unless you have a proven track record with other SKUs by the same producer, and then it could be different. So then once I do that, I'd love to know, I have no idea when it goes live. I could drop it off on a Friday. It might go live Monday. It might go live Wednesday. I have no idea. So I guess
And when you say live, are you talking as in like they have
available
listed
for
it
retailers
in their menu that retailers buy from?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So Sydney and Colin, what happens next?
Next, I get calls from all of my rep friends asking me, has my product gone live yet? Because I have no idea. And it was supposed to be live yesterday, but nobody else is seeing it. And that's what happens next.
And so what, when you say rep friends, could you tell us, what does that mean? What is a rep in this context?
Of course. So, I mean, I have gotten some calls from Janine actually asking me to check on her listings. I have friends who are representatives for different licensed producer companies. So they are trying to, like Janine says, give their customer service and be able to let stores know, like, hey, this awesome product is available to buy, but none of them really know when it actually becomes available to buy. So it's frustrating for all of us because we don't get a good heads up when it's there. So I might end up missing out on something that I've been waiting for a restock on for weeks and weeks just because nobody knew when it was going live.
Yeah. Is there more you can speak to kind of your experience as a buyer from the BCLDB, or is that about sufficient for what you want to share right now?
There's definitely a lot I can say about buying from the BCLDB. I think some of the big pain points for me can be just some of the misinformation that is still on the websites that I know, again, through friends of mine who are reps. They'll tell me all of this information on a strain, and I'm like, awesome, that's great. Luckily, I have great relationships with a lot of these companies, so I get a lot of this firsthand information. If I were to just go off of the BC Cannabis Wholesale site, sometimes the information is just wrong. Like they have the wrong genetics listed, or sometimes the wrong terpenes listed, or they're indicating it as something like it's a sativa when it's definitely going to be much more indica leaning, or just various issues like that. I find there's a lot of inconsistencies. So that's quite frustrating. I think touching on what Colin had said about not being able to buy a lot of something, I think it is still happening where I'm unable to buy a case of something. So again, I think just opening up direct delivery would allow me to, say, hey, I definitely want a case from you next week when you release it. Can we make sure that that happens? All I need is a case for the week. Likelihood is they can arrange that for me and I don't end up missing out just because, again, I wasn't informed when a product went live.
Yeah, and I imagine like for you as a rural retailer with lots of amazing rural producers around you, then you can really develop those relationships, because people,
Yeah.
you know, people in Trail and Warfield, they'll want to buy stuff from around them. Like there's
They
amazing
do.
producers in Weimar and Salmo,
Yeah.
like and all these different and not Rosemont's my neighborhood. Rossland, that's the word
Yeah.
I'm looking for. And being able to actually develop those relationships, and then you,
Totally.
of course, will buy more cases from them because it's easier for everybody involved, and your consumers want that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Colin, is there anything that's different from what Sydney talked about that is relevant for your experience as an urban retailer trying to purchase in BCLDB that you think is relevant to bring up in this conversation?
I do think the main thing still is the case limits. For us, at least, you know, again, when I want a lot of a good product, like I want a lot of it, I want to be able to offer to my customers consistently. That is definitely very frustrating. I think something with the BCLDB, and I mean, it's just by way of provincial boards themselves, and, you know, direct distribution, the way that it's currently proposed, isn't going to fix this. But what's very frustrating to me is that the provincial boards get to pick what gets listed and what doesn't. Like, I know my customer, the customer knows what they want. You know, why do you, as a category manager, like maybe you do have a lot of experience, but you aren't in my store every day talking to my customer. I should be able to buy the products and supply the products that I know they want. If they're coming from a licensed producer and I'm a licensed retailer, you know, what's the problem? If just as an instance, like I'll use Simply Bare, they're a bigger producer. Again, this wouldn't even necessarily be influenced by direct distribution, but they have a lot of products that are being sent to Ontario because the BCLDB isn't accepting them here in BC. You know, I want to stock these products for my customers. My customers have heard about them. They see them on social media. They don't understand why they're available in other provinces and not BC. If I could negotiate direct distribution and deals with these companies and stock the products that I know my customers want, I just think that's a game changer.
One thing, Colin, my understanding of the direct delivery program is that it is going to be something where they are no longer making subjective decisions. The only decisions they're going to make on what gets listed or not is, does it meet all the regulatory requirements? As long as it checks off all the boxes in terms of the COA being accurate and all those, and like that the producer can prove that it actually meets the regulatory requirements, then it can be listed. I think that's a big part of the program. So I think that issue at least is going to be addressed.
Awesome.
But I could be wrong because they're very
Yeah.
they've been very tight-lipped about a lot of things, and some of the things have changed from what the BCLDB said. So maybe that's not the case, but I do think that is actually being addressed.
But
I hope you're right. Yeah, I've heard from processors that the BCLDB will still have to list that product in their system, and like they'll still be able to choose which products they don't list.
They will list it, but they're not making subjective decisions. They're making objective decisions on does it meet the regulatory requirements or not. That's my understanding from.
I really hope that. I really hope so.
They made
Janine.
a very decision to exclude many producers because they're only doing this for micros and for craft under 3,000 kg a year. So somebody like Bazam, who is a local business that employs how many people in BC, in so many areas across BC, cannot participate. And the problem there, and I'm going to speak to this, guys, and this is important, is micro cultivators cannot afford to produce budget ounces. That will put them out of business. What percentage of your sales are premium? I mean, Colin, maybe you have a larger percentage because you've curated a store and you have a huge population base to service. So you can curate the premium consumer coming to your store. For somebody like Sydney in a rural area, which would be 95% of the stores or whatever, it's going to be different for her. She needs an assortment. So if BCLDB can't deliver to her for 3 weeks and the only thing I can provide her is premium priced micro craft, because all micro craft is technically in a premium tier, she's not going to have a varied assortment in her store. So this has not been a catch-all, and there's some serious issues with how they chose to go about this.
So let's shift the conversation then as in this kind of direction. What are a few other concerns? Janine, let's start with you because you got the floor right now. What are one or two other big concerns that you have around the proposed rollout with the information that we have had access to so far?
Well, I just didn't think that they should be excluding anybody in BC. I believe in the economic recovery of our province. We've all been hit hard in the last 2 years. And I think that it should have been available to everybody located in BC. If they want to do a Buy BC, a local play on it, I love that. That's going to help our economic recovery. But at the end of the day, to exclude the lower priced producers could actually end up putting pressure on the micros to discount their product. I actually like to have a varied assortment because it does help the micro premium producers stand out in the crowd. So I don't know, Sydney and Colin, but I think it would be really educational if you guys could speak to what percentage of product that you sell in the flower category is in a premium pricing tier and what else?
Yeah, I think it's hard to put a percentage on it, honestly, in my store because customers are very much so influenced just by what we have in the store at that time. I always have such a huge variety of products that I have had customers buy the $19 Chem Hindu glue from Choice Growers one week and then come back for a $45 eighth from BC Black because they're like, oh, you know what? That was grown close to locally. That sounds amazing. I'm going to do that. There is definitely a humongous need still for budget options. Like you said, Janine, if I am not getting orders for 3 weeks and all I have is craft products, I'm going to have some frustrated customers. I think even just having the options on the menus gives the customer the choice of buying that more premium option and not feeling like they're being pushed into that corner. This is a huge thing of what the complaints are, even with my own customers, is just pricey products. When they come in and they don't see a $19 to $25 eighth, even if that's not what they were necessarily going to buy, they're feeling like I'm trying to push expensive product on them and I don't have enough selection for them to feel comfortable about their choice. So yeah, I think, there's just such a huge need for Bazam, for Tabletop, for these bigger brands to have these budget options still.
What about you, Colin?
I think at THC, we're, again, this is a privilege. I think we're in a very unique position when it has come to the craft segment. We position ourselves as that, and we try to, but through our ordering process and our curation, we try to position ourselves as a top kind of premium curator. So I would, a lot of our percentage is all the time when I look at my top 10 selling products, like craft flower is, if I'm looking at the eights, it's like 8 out of 10 are $50 or $45 up eights. We're very lucky that we were able to cultivate that trust with our customers where they understand that if we're going to put an eighth on the shelf that it costs $45 or up, it's something that we would smoke ourselves. So we've cultivated that trust. We're very lucky with that. But what I really see happening here in the legal cannabis industry is the middle is falling out. There's the top high end $45+ eights, and then there's the low end budget $20, $25 eights where, they just want something that they can smoke that's decent, that's not that bad. I think everything in the middle is going to really struggle over the next maybe, coming years. I think you really have to pick. You're either a premium cultivator that has very high quality cannabis and you sell either that through your product or through your lifestyle and marketing, or, you're that lower budget end producer who's selling ounces and higher quality bulk options at affordable prices. I think that middle is falling out. And I there's so many considerations and things around direct delivery that I would just never have thought of. And I'm actually really glad to have this call with, somebody in different place, in a retailer in a different area, and also producers, because there's just so many things like I never would have thought of how that consideration, how, including bigger producers is actually so important for the livelihood of the smaller producers in the end. So I like the different perspective here as well.
Colin, is there any what is another let me restart that question and not jumble it up this time. Is there anything else out there in your experience as a buyer from the BCLDB that you are really excited about as it comes to direct delivery, and something that you're maybe really concerned about that you haven't talked about so far in relation to direct delivery?
Yeah. So I think a lot of the things that maybe anticipating being negatives were things that I didn't I didn't necessarily anticipate when I just heard of it. Like, I think the notion and the concept of direct delivery is a lot different than the actual proposed legislation that is currently being pushed through. So, I really started doing my research even in the past couple of weeks to look into the specific things that they're proposing. But the notion of direct delivery and distribution is just very exciting to me. I think it could change the entire cannabis industry and the entire way that everything is done. It could bring legacy consumers back. It could do all of these things. I think the thing that's being proposed right now has a lot of flaws, has a lot of problems. And I think, producers and maybe even people in the rural areas can speak to that even better than I can on the potential cons and the problems. Like, I did have a call actually with Aaron from Bazam yesterday just to get his perspective on this, because I really wanted to understand what those problems are. And I mean, like, even just things as simple as, like, the province is still going to want to take that 15% cut. They're still going to want to potentially either warehouse it or have some sort of touch point there. And really take their cut. And a lot of these bigger companies might not want to spend time to build out these processes if the current proposed legislation isn't worth it for them on a financial standpoint. So I think we really, I'm a fan of opening it up and making it as free as possible where we can, responsibly. But I think if we could really make this what the ideal direct delivery distribution model concept could be, I think that's where the entire cannabis industry could change. So I have a lot of optimism about the future of this program, but also I'm trying to understand the context of the realities and what's going to actually be pushed through in the coming weeks/months.
Cool. I'm glad you're bringing up the 15% markup that they refuse to call a tax, because if they called it a tax, they wouldn't be able to do it because that would be illegal. I had a conversation with Earl Oliver, who I think is he's in the audience here in the fall, and he was sharing that 15% markup is actually higher than than most industries where you have a central distributor that acts as a warehouser. Like the fees that are involved in making that happen is in most industries less than 15%. And mind you, they're doing things at the standard needing to properly refrigerate or do whatever with the product in question. And so now there's this proposal of, hey, we're no longer going to do any of this work, any of this logistical work. We're just going to list your stuff, and you have to take on all these added costs of dealing with all this stuff, and yet you still have to pay us this 15%. I'm going to call it a tax, because at that point it's a tax. You're not actually doing work that deserves that 15%. So, Janine, I want to turn this conversation over to you, and I'd like you to speak to that, because I know you have done a lot more kind of financial modeling and thinking about the implications of not removing or changing that markup. So yeah, if you can speak to that, I'm curious to hear your thoughts about that specific topic.
So if you're a retailer and you're watching this right now, I want you to know something. And what I want you to know is that direct delivery is going to cost the micro cultivators that we're trying to support more, not less. So all the retailers, they were so excited about direct delivery. I got dozens of phone calls when the news came out. But guess what? They wanted to know how much money they were going to save. That's why they were excited about it. They thought they wouldn't be paying the BCLDB markup, maybe 5% to cover my additional overhead and our producers' additional overhead, maybe 5%, would go to shipping, and maybe 5% they could save. But nope. So we have an additional logistics department we have to build out. Think about this if you're a micro, okay? A lot of my micros literally are one man. So you now have to build out an additional logistics department. You have to take orders. Oh, and who has AR and AP experience? Because right now we got.
No, wait, what is AR and AP?
Accounts receivable and account payable.
I do know those terms. I never
Yes,
heard it said that way.
So as somebody who has done AR, okay, in my early administrative career, I can tell you that is a full-time job. So I just learned about how direct delivery goes in the alcohol industry, which is what all of our modeling is based off of with BCLDB. Does anybody know how that goes on this panel? Okay, so I
didn't even know that alcohol had direct delivery. I know close to nothing about alcohol distribution. So enlighten us, Janine.
Okay, so I'm a winery and I want to direct deliver. So I invoice Sydney, okay? And from the moment I invoice Sydney, I have to remit the entire amount of the invoice to BCLDB, and then they pay me back on net 30. And so if Sydney's credit card bounces or she doesn't pay me, guess what? I've paid BCLDB, and then I get 85% of my money back in 30 days, and I'm out the weed, the packaging, and the excise. So that's direct delivery for alcohol. So if they do that to our micro cultivators, think about this, Sami. Think about the additional operating capital they're going to require to submit that invoice and pay it to BCLDB before the stores paid them.
Wow.
And this is supposed to help our micros. So if they do this like they are doing alcohol, it's going to be very alarming. So everybody wants to talk about, oh, it's a great idea. Oh, we'll give micros a boost. Really? Because you just set this up where it's going to cost them more money in every way. And they are barely surviving as it is. I mean, when I first started talking to BCLDB and lobbying them, I begged them to only mark up micro cultivated product 5% because their cost to produce is 5 times that of a standard. Their COGS do not get spread around as many kilograms of product.
And what is a COG, Janine?
Cost of goods sold.
Cost of goods sold. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's some serious challenges here. This was supposed to help micros, and that's why they left out all the standards. None of this sounds very helpful. It sounds like, once again, only the privileged and the wealthy will really benefit from this.
Yeah, and my biggest concern with this whole program, which I mentioned at the beginning, isn't any particular detail in it. It's the fact that they have been completely unwilling to test it out, to trial out their assumptions. They're making all these assumptions that this is going to work. They're hedging all their bets on this thing and absolutely refusing to engage the small scale producer industry in any kind of meaningful way. And if all of these issues that are legitimate, potential alarming, concerning issues that could completely derail this program, if all of those do end up actually being issues, I would much rather determine that by trialing it in some kind of small way so that we can test those assumptions. Oh, we've trialed this for 2 months and all of the retailers are not buying from any of the small scale producers because their costs are up. Oh, okay. Well, this is very clear data. This is not going to work. We have to rethink the implementation details. That's like I've talked to the BCLDB many times about this. And have gotten basically an official response of, nope, we're not talking to anybody. We have our approach and we're doing it. I've tried to then get them to commit to at least having like a trial phase after, where 3 months, 6 months, 12 months in, they're going to look at data and implement changes based off what they're seeing. Never heard a response to that follow-up request. And their official stance is, oh, we're building this platform, and it doesn't matter if we do it for a few people or everybody, it's going to work just the same. And they keep thinking of it in terms of on a technical level. The software is going to work no matter what. But the issue isn't the software. The issue is the actual policies and the assumptions they're making. And, this conversation has just highlighted like 3, 4, 5 different ways in which this golden opportunity that could be a huge boon to BC's economy, allow small scale producers throughout to thrive, and then convince all the like 99%, 98% of producers that have not transitioned in because it's been way too hard to succeed and have financial success, give them incentive to actually join because now people are thriving. That's what this program has the potential to do. It has the potential to completely transform this industry and make it super viable. And it just feels to me that it's just being like thrown away, this golden opportunity. And all it's going to take is a decision from BCLDB to actually listen, to actually engage, to actually, like, you're talking, Janine, about how they have these 4 different people within the organization that are really knowledgeable and do understand what it takes. The fact that they have that in-house and they're not listening to them is really sad. And that results.
Not asking them.
Yeah. And to me, for me as an outsider who does not know the internal workings of the BCLDB, the end result is that my takeaway is that they have no cannabis expertise because they're just not engaging with the expertise they have in-house. Or if they do, they're ignoring it. Anyway, I've been talking for a while, and I don't want to keep talking. I want to give you, Sydney, an opportunity to add any thoughts that you might have on any additional things that you are really excited about with BC's direct delivery proposed program, and any other concerns that you might have that we haven't talked about so far.
Yeah, totally. I mean, not to beat around the same bush, but the 15%, yeah, like I would love to see that removed eventually. And like Janine said, we can use that 5% or 10%, whatever it is, towards the production fees and the cost to help that micro producer actually make money and have this be viable. I'm super excited to be able to start building more relationships with these micro producers and be able to support them maybe on like a closer level, I feel like. I've been really, I think I touched on it earlier, just with the inconsistencies that I'm seeing on the BC Cannabis wholesale site. I think if direct deliveries were to be opened up, we would be able to actually have a little bit more communication. Maybe the producers would actually know when the product got delivered to our stores, so there could be some actual follow-up, and we could get actual appropriate sell sheets and things like that. But yeah, I think I'm excited for what this could be, but I think like Colin said, I think I'm excited of the idea of direct delivery, not necessarily actually what they have proposed and are about to roll out, just because, yeah, this is going to be hard. And speaking for myself, coming again from a rural area, having small stores, our budget is pretty tight week to week. So if all of a sudden it's more expensive to order from these micro facilities and I'm paying, even more in shipping and even more in this, it's not going to be viable for me. It just won't be. As much as my customers would love it, as much as I would love it, it's not doable if the budget isn't there. And
yeah, you have to pay more to get the same product. What?
Yeah.
Where's like the incentive there?
Exactly. Like, this kind of thing to me was like, cool, we're going to save a little bit of money, or at least the producer will just end up making more money themselves, whichever way you cut it. I was excited for that. And now it's like,
no, it sounds like they make less money and you pay more money, both at the same time.
Exactly. The government just gets more again. It's like,
I just think it's like a different way of thinking. So like one of the things at joint venture is every time we figure out a way to save money, it gets passed to the cultivator. We don't take that margin for ourselves. We have a flat rate fee. Okay. So if the government doesn't think like that, every opportunity is how much can we make, not how can we create a sustainable industry. The reason that Ben Williams runs joint venture Craft Cannabis like that is because if he doesn't, our micro cultivators could see their businesses fail, and then we will not have suppliers. Well, the same thing true for the government, but they're not looking at it that way. They're not looking at it as a limited resource of suppliers. We have our first micro cultivator in Canada, Hearst Organic. I tried to get their product, which had amazing reviews, listed and was denied the listing when I was with Shelter in BC. It had Planet of the Grapes, had insane reviews. And they've now handed their license back in. They were the first licensed micro in Canada. That is a travesty. And we're going to see this happening over and over. And what happens when I live in an area, in Sydney, you live in an area where 30 to 40% of our local economy is upheld by illicit cannabis. That means that they're not significantly motivated to transition in unless they see that they can make similar money. And that is why our best growers aren't here yet. And they didn't start building their micros till this year, because up until this year, they were still getting more money in the illicit market than they could make in the legal market. And until these things are addressed, we're going to continue to have to combat the illicit market because they're going to have better product at a cheaper price.
And what's really sad about that, Janine, is that I think it was on the order of 80% or so of the illicit underground growers in this region that were in the Kootenays, they, at the start of legalization, before the regulations were actually launched, they all wanted to transition. They fought for this. Out of 2,500 people who have operations in the local area with licenses, in the ACMPR, MMAR licenses, 2,000 wanted to shift to this new model. But when they saw both the challenges on the federal level in getting licensed and working with Health Canada, and the challenges in distribution, and just the inability to actually sell your product in a viable and reliable manner, most of the people were like, you know what, we're just going to wait because this is not worth it. We're going to transition and we're going to lose our business, because that's what happened. What seems to be the case right now.
Yeah.
We are over time here at this point, and I see we have 13 questions. Before we shift to questions, I'll give each of you guys an opportunity to kind of share final comments. To our audience, please go to the questions tab. There's 14 questions right now. Upvote all the ones that you like, because we're just going to go in order of most popular until we run out of steam, because we are supposed to wrap up in about 4 minutes here. Are you guys okay to go a bit over so we can do the Q&A here?
Totally.
Okay, sweet. So we'll go until we run out of steam. Maybe we'll get through all of them. But yeah, if you help us by upvoting the questions you want answered, that would be great. I'll share my. I've got 2 final thoughts. I'll share one now, and I'll share another one after Sydney and Janine and Colin share their thoughts. My first final thought is something I just want to highlight, something that Earl and a few other people were talking about in the chat, which is that this 15% markup is just one of many markups. You have this excise duty, which can be anywhere from 30 to 130% of the cost of a product, which that right there is ludicrous. You add this 15% markup, you add this markup that retailers have to add, because how are they going to survive? You add sales tax, GST, HST, all these different things, and the tax balloons up, and it becomes actually like the government ends up getting way more money than the producer does. How is that viable? That's not viable. And it seems like each slice of government, each slice of markup is really thought of in isolation. It's like, oh, 15% isn't that much. We can do that, which is valid if that was the only cost that there was, but it needs to be taken in tandem, and I really hope that the government shifts into trying to think of this holistically, and instead of trying to take a big giant pie like they're taking right now, to realize, hey, we have this pie right here, and this is the slice that we're taking. Let's make the pie slice about that much, and you know what's going to happen when that takes place? What happens is that the pie itself becomes massive, because now it's a lot more viable to be able to thrive. You have those 2,000 producers in the Kootenays that haven't transitioned. Now they transition over the next 2 or 3 years. And guess what? For every 200 producers you bring in, that right there is an equivalent slice of pie as what we have right now in total. So the entire industry becomes way more lucrative, both to government, and you then have a viable economy and a sector that can really contribute to the local GDP here in BC. So that's my final thought that I want to kind of my second final thought that I want to share. Colin, let's go in reverse chronological order, reverse clockwise order. No, clockwise order. Yeah, clockwise order. We'll go Colin, then Janine, then Sydney. Colin, what are your final closing remarks you want to make before we switch to questions and answers?
For sure. I'll say, well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I think I'll say, I'll just reiterate what I've already said. I think direct distribution is an incredibly exciting opportunity. I think that the way it's currently proposed has some things that could be worked on. It doesn't make as much sense as it should. And I hope that they consult industry stakeholders to learn how they can make that better. I think just quickly touching on what we were just speaking about, legacy market producers transitioning. To me, it's kind of frustrating that government acts like it's just some wild mystery about how we're going to get legacy consumers to come over to the legal market. It's really not. At the end of the day, I've
make
said
it viable. That's all it's going to take. Make it viable.
and I've said this in a few different interviews before, but really, legacy consumers like their dealer. Like they don't have a problem with their dealer. That's not the problem they have. They would love to buy legally. But if you can just legalize their dealer and bring them into the legal market, then we're going to bring all those consumers with them. And I think that that's only going to happen if we make that worth it for them through policies like direct distribution, through getting these things right. That's the only way we're going to incentivize both the producers and the consumers to come over, which is one of my main goals as a retailer. And yeah, I think that that's really one of the main points here. And yeah, I just thank you guys for having me on. I'm looking forward to some of the questions there.
Cool. Thanks, Colin. Thank you for being here. It's been a pleasure. Janine, what are your closing remarks?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for having me, but also like Colin and Sydney, I really enjoy hearing your perspectives. And I think a lot of people need to listen to some of the younger people shaping our industry so that we can shape it the way that we want in the way that their age group shops. I think it's really important to listen to their feedback. And what Colin said about people not minding their dealer is absolutely true. Yeah. I do want to take it a step further and say, it's not just direct delivery. Another major thing that could help us actually transition in illicit market customers is allowing retailers like Sydney and Colin to sell online. The BC Cannabis Store online monopoly means that they're able to provide a level of customer service where I can order and get it directly to my home in the mail, pick it up when I feel like it, kind of be in more control. I don't have to be there to physically receive it. I can pick it up from my post office box, whatever. So my point is, until private retailers can offer the same level of customer service that the BC Cannabis Store can, we're in a situation where we're not going to transition in illicit consumers. So we need to be opening this up more. We need to just open it up and allow us to provide the same service as the illicit market. That's why they're beating us. Sales is based on customer service.
Yeah.
And sorry, before we move on to Sydney, Janine, can you speak briefly, because you talking about that reminded me of the pre-going on air conversation we were having. Can you speak briefly to samples?
Samples, yes. So I'm not allowed to hand out samples in BC. We have a liberal NDP government and one of the least progressive policies with marketing and handing out samples. In Ontario, the Ford government allows samples to be handed out from producers to retailers. So this is a travesty, and we can't wait. They can change this at a provincial level. I find that the province does a lot of finger pointing at the federal government, and the federal government does a lot of finger pointing at the province, but allowing retailers to do third-party delivery online right now and allowing producers to give sample to retailers is something that they could do right now in BC. Nothing is stopping them, and they're refusing to. So let's get it done.
Sydney, what are your closing remarks that you want to share before we switch to Q&A?
Yeah, just wanted to also thank you for having me on. This has been so informational, even for myself too. Honestly, just kind of retouching on points you all have just made. But yeah, I think something I've always honestly kind of laughed about is the fact that the government taking such massive pieces from these cultivators is why we see news articles about how the legal cannabis industry is underperforming. It's like, yes, because people are not willing to shop and buy government cannabis. So online, customers are going and they're shopping black market because they don't want to put their ID and their information into a government cannabis store. If I had an online retail store and someone that visited me 2 weeks ago, but is actually from elsewhere in BC, they can now order from my store because they know they're still getting that same level of customer service. I think that would be huge if we were able to take away some of this markup from these micro cultivators, if we were able to open direct or actual online sales for private retail stores, we would all of a sudden see a massive boom in this industry. I mean, there's also other little regulatory things here and there that I think can definitely change in the next couple of years, but these are some really big ones that I think we would see a direct reflection and massive improvements. And like you said, Sami, the government would just end up making more money. So I laugh because I don't see why they're not doing it yet. It's like they're missing out on making money, which I thought was the whole thing. So I don't know.
Yeah. Thanks, Sydney. And thank you to all three of you for being here today. I really appreciate this conversation. And like you guys said, I learned a lot. That's my favorite thing about these talks is actually that I get to learn every time. We try to bring in guests with unique perspectives, talk about different themes, different topics, and I always learn an immense amount. Before we shift to the Q&A, I'm going to share my final thought, which is that I'm really disappointed in the BC LDB. The LCRB and the Cannabis Secretariat's office have done an amazing job of being inclusive and really trying to include the industry in their decision-making process. And it's such a shame that the program that has the biggest chance to massively transform this industry for the better is being handled by an organization that does not have that attitude. So BCLDB, I know you have at least one representative here listening today. I hope that you guys share this YouTube video once it goes live on YouTube with the rest of our organization. If you're listening, please just listen to people, talk to people, include the industry. You're trying to solve an issue for an industry that has been operating for decades, and they know their pain points. They know their struggles. So why would you not include them in the conversation in a meaningful way? not just in a we checked off the boxes of we filled out that survey and got the responses. Like that's not meaningful. Impactful means actually making the conscious decision to admit that your assumptions are assumptions and that they might be wrong, and that it's okay if they're wrong, and if they're wrong, that you're gonna address them. And as long as you guys have that attitude of let's figure this out together, then we'll get this amazing program in place, and we have the potential to do that. So let's fucking make it happen. Let's make it happen. I know we can, and I really encourage all of you listening here today. Once this goes live on YouTube, please share it widely, because we're a ways away from this program actually coming into reality. I think it was fall of this year they decided. So we have an opportunity here to really get the BCLDB to shift their perspective. And if they don't, what I would really recommend is talk to your MLAs, talk to your elected officials, and because they can put pressure that the BCLB might actually listen to. I don't really know much about the structure of the organization. I do know it's super bureaucratic, and with that, often the people that are involved, that are the policymakers, the policy analysts, they often personally might agree with what we're talking about here. Like they're like, yeah, this is not okay what we're doing, but they don't necessarily have full sway over the situation. So I also very much encourage you, if you do talk to the BCLDB, be respectful. Like being disrespectful is not going to get us anywhere. I think we need to be honest. We need to be real about the issues and the challenges, but to ultimately know that everybody involved is a human, and we don't know like kind of what's going on behind the scenes. They do have to officially put out their official response. They can't share what they actually think deep down inside. But hopefully this episode here can get circulated widely and make a dent and a difference in terms of how the government is approaching this, so that we actually solve the problem instead of just creating another thing that tried to hit the mark but missed, because that's really seems to be the direction we're going in right now. All right. So that being said, let's shift over to the questions here. Thank you all for those of you who stuck around. We had, I think, 69 people at the peak, and we have 61 right now, which is incredible. One of our more popular episodes that we've had. So let's go here and see what is most upvoted. Mike West, not surprised to see you are the most upvoted question with 7. Are there any products that the retailers would like to see that are not in the market already?
Sure, I could start here if that's all right. Basically, I think a lot of what it is, and I touched on this earlier, are legacy brands transitioning. So there's a lot of brand names that I used to buy prior to 2018 that I would love to see in my shop today, right? And I love to buy their products. The next big thing as well, I think we're getting to a point where there's actually a ton of producers putting out really high quality gear. So the next differentiating point is genetics. And I think it's a lot of these genetics that we're seeing in the States, that we're maybe seeing in the pre-recreational legalized market. I think it's genetics, and I think there's a few other exciting product categories. I think like solventless concentrates and other dabbable concentrates. There's still a lot of white space there for some really high quality offerings to make their way into the market. We're starting to see some 100%, but I think that there's just some more white space there. But yeah, I do think producers like Pistol and Paris, J Buds, like Ghost Drops, all these kind of guys and like Joint Venture and BC Black, all the companies that are coming from these small micro BC growers are bringing genetics that they either developed themselves or that they got from legacy market participants, and they're bringing those into the legal market. I think that's what's been missing, and that's what's coming into the market slowly.
Yeah.
What about yourself, Sydney? Are there any products you'd like to see that aren't already available?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything Colin just said, especially I think solventless extractions. I think there is definitely a space still open for that. I think I've been really honestly just happy at all of the little improvements that we've been seeing over the past year. Like Colin said, all of the awesome genetics that we're starting to see come out of these micro cultivators. It's really exciting. Our customers are excited. My staff is super excited. It's been awesome. I've loved seeing more options for like craft 15 grams, because, I do have customers that are willing to spend a little bit more on that, 15 grams of the crazy crystal. Like I have so many customers excited about that coming in. So I've been really excited to see that.
Did you get the Hawaiian hammer?
I didn't. I was really sad.
Is that from West Kootenai Cannabis Corp?
I know. I missed it.
Is the Hawaiian hammer the West Kootenai Cannabis Corp?
It's Greg's, yeah.
Awesome.
So good.
They were our very first customer back in 2019, I think.
Oh, that's awesome.
Really stoked to see that Caslo shop grow. Sorry, yeah. Go ahead,
But
Sydney.
yeah, I mean, it's been really exciting, honestly, just seeing all of these little improvements. But I think, yeah, just a little bit more bulk options. I know just chatting with my staff before this call this past week, everyone agreed that 7-gram options are really cool to see in higher quality options. Like even when the Greybeard, when they released their top cola for Afghani Drifter, our customers went nuts for those. Like everyone loved that. So having like things like top colas, like as a limited release, things like that are really exciting.
So just to make sure I get what you're saying, Sydney, are you saying that they had like a specific SKU that was just the biggest buds, the very like best colas from each plant, and that was a separate SKU from the other things that they sold from the same cultivar?
Yeah, it was. And people absolutely loved it. Like I loved it too. It was so awesome. And like the bud was just phenomenal, of course. But yeah, people just love things like that. It's, limited release. Like when I bring something in that I tell people we probably won't be able to bring this back in, everyone's buying it. So, creating that demand on things is really exciting. But,
and that's something that's really easy to do in the craft market. And it's a thing that BC Direct Delivery can facilitate. If it's actually straightforward and accessibly priced, then that becomes easy. Like I'm just going to create this new SKU for like the best buds of this particular genetic. And you know what? I'm never going to grow that cultivar again. I'm going to keep breeding, and every 4 months I'm going to have a new genetic that I put out because it's actually easy to get a SKU listed now to do limited edition runs.
I remember Ty from Hybrid Brands, he was saying how they had eventually wanted to do something like a half ounce or full ounce on the branch still. So you get some absurdly large cylinder container or something, I would order like 4 or whatever, and that would be it. But, like something that those 4 customers of mine are just going to be like, okay, this is the coolest thing ever. Like I would love to see just more stuff like that. I think it's really... that's what's going to bring people into the stores that might normally just shop black market. They'll be like, okay, I have to go try that. I'm going to go in and try it.
Cool. All right, let's go to the next question. We got Bob Fortin here asking, do you see any way for cultivators to survive in this climate? I can't see companies surviving on $2 a gram.
I'll speak to that. They can't. So, we could have offered some of our micro producers $1 a gram to clear out their vault, but Ben refuses to do business like that. He won't do it because he'll put them out of business. But other people are willing to. They'll take it all, and they'll, because it's a degrading product, it's not getting any higher priced. They're not surviving. They're going out of business, and it's hard. Micro cultivators need to be able to clear a minimum of $2.20 to $4 a gram to have viable business plans. Now, I'd say the average cost to produce for a small craft cultivator is around $1.70 a gram. So, for them to make at least 50 cents a gram, it would be necessary to cover that G&A and that sort of thing. A lot of these micros too, just because I had 8 lights in my basement to pay for my son's hockey does not mean that I am rich and had $1 million to build a micro cultivation facility. That is a huge thing that was not addressed. There's been no equity program like in California to provide people with criminal records or cannabis histories or, that come from, a lower economic ability to get into the industry. So the debt payments that these micro cultivators have to make for the money that they borrowed to build these facilities, it is up there. And I'm seeing more of them struggle and more of them barely making it every day. So no, they're not really going to survive at $2 a gram unless they get their cost of goods sold down to 75 cents a dollar. And I think it's really hard to produce a quad product or, a high trip at that price.
Thanks, Janine. And to our audience, I apologize. I just realized I forgot to order by upvotes. So I was wondering why I was going out of order. Now it's actually ordered by upvotes. So we're going to go with Steve Kroner, who actually has the most popular questions. Colin, I see you're already typing an answer. Maybe you can shift to saying it live here, but I'll read the question first. Steve asks, would retailers like to sell more sun-grown greenhouse or outdoor craft cannabis products? Does the actual growing environment matter to their customers? And does it matter to them being the retailers, I assume?
I didn't realize me clicking on the question made it look like I was about to answer. Sorry, I didn't realize. But yeah, no, I think it's an interesting question. Honestly, to be completely honest, no, it doesn't matter to me. And for the most part, I've never had a customer ask me if it's outdoor grown as a good thing. I've had some people even associate it being a bad thing. I'll just be completely honest. That's what I'm seeing as an urban retailer with a premium customer base. I've never had somebody ask for sun-grown flower or seen that potentially is a good thing. I think there's some education that needs to be had though, because I know that there are some really experienced, knowledgeable legacy consumers who do see that as a good thing and that they've explained to me why it's a good thing and why natural growing processes and all this stuff. I don't think your current average consumer or even your current average premium consumer is educated enough to know why they would pay more or even pay the same amount for an outdoor grown greenhouse product, outdoor product. And that's just my perspective, but yeah, that's from what I've been seeing.
What about yourself, Sydney?
I think I partially agree. I think there's a lot of customers that probably don't know the difference, and so there might not be a huge push. That being said, being in the Kootenays where everyone is very natural, very organic, people love to hear when something is sun-grown or it's organic or, it's a little bit better for the environment, that sort of thing. People love to hear that. I don't know if they necessarily are after that in terms of quality or how the actual product is, but they just really like that the process, is involving less electricity. It's a little bit more just natural, back to old school ways, that kind of thing. People in my area are definitely super happy to see stuff like that. So one of our best budget sellers is Pure Sun Farms, because it's all BC grown. It's a sun grown facility. People love that company. So I definitely think,
and it's affordable.
Yeah, exactly. So people love that. It's really awesome to see. Yeah.
In my, so I'm somebody who definitely prefers outdoor to indoor. In my experience, outdoor cannabis, I mean, it's just got much more varied cannabinoids and terpenes. There's a lot more of that develops in there. It doesn't look anywhere near as pretty, but and it's usually not as high THC, though there are strains coming out now that are outdoor that are hitting 25-26% THC. But guess what? Our whole idea in this retail system that THC is what matters is so wrong. 17%, 13% THC floors me. I don't need higher THC personally. I'd like to be able to have the equivalent of a beer, of a glass of wine. But if you go into what the retail stores now, it's all just hard liquor. That's your only option that you have. And that's another thing that I think direct delivery has the potential to solve, because now retailers that do care about, I don't mind having a 7% outdoor strain that has 3% CBG, 4% CBD, 5% terps. We know that makes people feel real good and relaxed, and that's something that we want to carry, and they can't carry that right now going through the current system. So I think that's another thing that will be addressed by direct delivery if it's rolled out properly.
Could I ask a follow-up question to that people always miss? How much do you think people will pay Colin and Sydney for something that they know has about a 1/20th the cost to produce as indoor? So how much do you think they'll pay for it? It's great to say you could sell it. It's great to say it would move. How much do you think it's worth?
Yeah, I have two things. I think, again, I think those customers who aren't educated on sun-grown outdoor flower might not even realize that it is that much cheaper. Maybe they intuitively understand. But the big thing for me is when we're looking at any product attribute, when it comes to cannabis, it's is it an upselling point? I don't know any customer where I talk to them, at least, again, at my store, where me telling them that it's sun-grown would make them spend $10 more on the product. It's not really a selling point that I would ever use. Craft grown here in BC, grown in a small facility, grown by legacy growers who have been doing this for decades. Those are all things that I use that aren't THC related or high terpenes. Obviously, these are all conversations that really matter to my customers. I just really couldn't see anything here. I have this Pure Sun Farms ounce for $130. I have this tabletop one for $120. This Pure Sun Farms one was outdoor grown. You want to pay an extra $10? I don't know if there's any or many customers that would be okay, yeah, that's a selling point that I want to pay for. Is how I think about it.
Yeah.
I think. Oh, go ahead, Sydney.
Oh, sorry. I actually think that is totally a selling point that I would be able to use. Is here's a tabletop ounce for $120 and my Pure Sun Farms sun-grown ounce for $130. I think that my customers would pay that extra $10, honestly, to know that it's, a little bit more old school, techniques, it's sun grown, it's a little bit more environmentally friendly, I definitely have people that would spend that extra little bit of money for sure.
And
Do I have a
there's very
product
different
for you?
demographics. There's very different demographics, you know, in a small
Totally.
town in rural BC where everybody knows like at least 20 other farmers out there, regardless of what they're farming, versus an urban environment where I'd be surprised if like 1 in every 10 of your customers like personally knows like 2 farmers that are actively farming.
Totally.
I actually really love to hear that different perspective and just challenging my assumptions. Like obviously it's easy to work in a store, like work with certain stores or brands, whatever, and just make assumptions on the whole market based on that. But like, that's actually really interesting to hear. And I think that makes sense for certain, especially British Columbia based markets that they might be able to see that as a product. Yeah. Very interesting.
Well, yeah, even for me, like I started out in Hobo Cannabis, which now is Dutch Love. So very similar kind of vibe, I think, to what you are experiencing at THC. And when I moved to the Kootenays, I definitely came with a similar mindset that I think you have, where it's like, I know what people don't like, what people like, but being here and like listening to people, I'm like, oh, okay, I did not know. I did not know as much as I thought I did about what these customers want in comparison. Because yeah, there was just so much more appreciation for sun grown and organic and all of these things that, yeah, people in Kelowna would just be like, okay, weird girl, like I don't care. It's been really eye-opening.
I think organic, even, you know, organic has been used as a selling point that we use a lot too. And I think with like producers like Simply Bare and stuff, I think organic is really something I just personally haven't seen that outdoor been used as a I haven't, but no, this is like, dude, that's super interesting. I'm going to look like more into it and see if I can find more, because it's a very interesting topic for me.
And one thing to look into is California, because in California, there's a very, very different mindset there where outdoor sun grown organic is a really big deal. The single biggest brand in California is a brand that acts as a white label for a whole bunch of outdoor organic sun grown producers, and that's all they do. I can't remember, what's the name of that company?
It's not Old Pal, is it? It's a different one, or it's not those
guys? No, I can't remember. Maybe somebody shared in the Flow Canada. Yeah, Sarah Campbell got it. Flow Canada. Yeah. They had like a $140 million valuation like 3 or 4 years ago, and all they did was they just made it easy for organic farmers, organic sun-grown outdoor farmers, to bring their product to market, and that farmers loved it across California. Consumers loved it across California, because there does seem to be like some stigma against outdoor cannabis in a lot of parts of BC, but that doesn't exist down there. So all that is to say that I think there is a future for organic outdoor sun-grown to thrive in BC. But I think there's a lot of education that needs to happen to make it more sustainable. But personally, I see that being a big deal in the future. All right, next question is from Linda, I believe. Let's go find it again. There we go. Linda Domeyer asks, with direct delivery, how will you handle product liability and product recall?
Same as we handle it now, which is our insurance deductible is $100,000. So under that, we eat it. Right? So I just went through a recall. I'd love to speak to it. Colin, you were my first call. So I found out from a customer, it was somebody I was friendly with, that they thought they might have spotted some powdery mildew on a Bud Coast OG Shark product. Now, we just had delivery, and I knew the first stores to get it would be in Vancouver. So it'd be Colin, and he always orders all the premium craft. So my very first call was to Colin. I was absolutely, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like, so the product was safe. It tested safe. We were at 10%, the microbial limit allowed by Health Canada. And the reason we did the recall was, to save, like, if a consumer is going to go into a store and pay $40 for an eighth of weed, or $45, it sure as shit better be perfect. Okay. Because that's a lot of money. So if it was a lower price product, I probably wouldn't have done the recall, but 1 in every 4 buds was affected. It was during the heat wave this summer. They had an equipment malfunction. They thought they got it all. They didn't. So we called every single store in BC to find out who had our product. You got to call Sydney. You got to call Colin. Some of the stores didn't want to pull the product. I asked them to anyway. And I tracked down every single gram. If we were on direct delivery, that would have been a hell of a lot easier because I would have known who got the product and I would have been able to get those cases found.
Wait, are you actually saying, Janine, that with the current program going through a centralized distribution network, if you have a recall, they won't help you with that by connecting you
When
to
I
who's
had a recall and I begged them for the list of retailers that had it, they would not provide it and they said
What
it was
the fuck?
confidential. I had to call every single store in BC.
That is so fucked up. That goes completely
Crazy.
against the ethos of the whole like pharmaceutical oriented regulations that we have. Like everything is recall focused. Is a recall really easy to do? Can you get the names? Like it sounds like the BCLDB is not following the regulations.
The BCL, what did
Even
the
though they don't
recall
apply to them.
within the, okay, so when you're a retailer and you ordered the OG Shark, how does the BCLDB handle it with you, Colin?
Oh, they didn't. We go onto the BCLDB to order more product, and there's a small little banner at the top saying this product has been recalled, and then there's no contact being made to us, nothing like that. Like it's basically
like they don't
like
email you when you ordered it?
No, there was absolutely no email, even though that we purchased the product and that was on record, and I'm sure that it could have tracked that down. It's literally just that. I know Cindy, I think she saw it too. I'm sure is a tiny little banner at the top of the website where you can order more product. And you're like, oh, interesting. Okay, that product may or may not have already sold like a full case of is being recalled. Like now I have to go through this process to contact them myself and send it back and all this stuff.
So if I hadn't called your store and I hadn't called your store, you wouldn't have even maybe known.
Maybe not. No.
Oh, my word.
If let's say I took a week off ordering, I probably wouldn't have seen that notice on the top, and I probably would have never known.
Yeah, because then it just goes to their announcement page, which is just like, I've been on there sometimes just to check what I've missed. I've always missed something. Like there's always something. And it's like recalling products that I've carried in the store, and I brought in a case of 12. They recalled it. I wasn't on the website for 4 or 5 days. I've sold the entire case now at this point. All of my customers are smoking a recalled product because I have not been informed. And it's like, is this just up to me to be checking this announcement page every single day? I don't know if it should be. If, like you're saying, this is a pharmaceutical product and we're so recall focused, I don't think I should be the one who needs to be checking every single day.
That is so fucked up. Like I'm shocked to hear this. It's like, what is the 15% going to if they're not doing just basic distributor tax? The point of a distributor is to handle distribution and recalls. That's the whole point of a centralized system. You have one agency that can handle it all. Like that really upsets me to hear that this is the reality that retailers are facing today.
So like out of the 100 cases that we had out, BCLDB only had 53 returned to them. And it was probably like largely for those reasons. I actually started calling Thursday night. And late, I think it was like a Wednesday night, Thursday morning, I caught Colin on the SkyTrain and just, because I wanted, I started calling retailers saying, pull it off the shelf, pull it off the shelf, pull it off the shelf, don't sell another unit. But yeah, I was way more on it than the BCLDB. So how will it happen? As long as it's under $100,000, we're not using that recall insurance. Trust me. Yeah.
So that just comes right out of your guys' pocket then, hey?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
And the producer's pocket.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Wait, so you're telling me that the premiums for recall insurance, if the total recall is under $100,000, they don't cover the cost?
That's our deductible.
That's insane. What's
the point of paying literal millions of dollars as a micro?
Yeah.
Or not? Sorry, excuse me. Not literal. Is that the insurance is millions, but you're paying tens of thousands. What's the point of paying tens of thousands of dollars annually for an insurance if the deductible is going to be higher than whatever the recall is ever going to be anyway?
Well, for a micro, it will be because we're not sending like 600 cases in at a time.
That makes no sense. There's all these layers to the requirements around recall insurance that I didn't know were there. I always assumed that when you're paying, $50,000 to $75,000 a year in recall insurance, what that means is if it's recalled, you don't pay a dime. I didn't realize it meant that as a micro, you're still paying $100,000 every single time.
That's crazy.
That's fucked up. Okay, I don't want to keep talking about this because we can keep talking about this. Let's go to Nathan.
Whole other podcast now for just this topic.
Nathan Sion. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your last name correctly there. Maybe your first name too. Maybe you're Nathan. Anyway, he asks, what would be the recommended path of a micro for volume? In 2022, would we be better to have 10 to 12 kilograms, multiple small drops, lots, or 20 to 35 kilogram larger drops for wholesale bulk purchases?
Smaller.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely say smaller. I mean, for my store, the way that I order, I typically order a case of a product at a time. And then we have lots of variety, but I'm not always able to order really big case sizes or really pricey bulk products, even if it looks amazing. Sometimes we're limited to only being able to bring in a case that's, under $400 because that's what my budget can handle for that week. And sometimes even, a case under $300 is all we can do or whatever it is. But yeah, I think smaller and more drops is definitely the way because we just get fresher products. And yeah.
What about you, Colin? Is the same for you or different in the urban environment?
I mean, it's a little different, but I would say I think direct distribution, the topic of today, really ideally could solve this problem. Like you can go out, you can reach out to retailers and see how much you could sell before you actually grow the product, before you invest all the money. Right now, you're just kind of guessing. You're guessing at what the BCLDB is going to want to take. You're guessing at how fast the retailer is going to buy it. You're guessing at how the BCLDB is even going to break it up, if it's going to be 2 case limits and those kind of things. So I think, if, again, it's not the way that they're proposing it right now, but if we were at the ideal direct distribution kind of model, this could really solve this, where the producers could reach out to the retailers first, let them know what genetics they're growing, let them potentially even give them samples of it, and then determine those kilogram amounts and those forecasts based on actual consumer data instead of just guessing, because at this point, it's hard. I honestly don't know. Like, I wouldn't be able to give specific advice to a micro. I just don't have like a line of sight behind being a micro, but I do think, it all comes down to the products you're putting out too. Like, again, there's been times where we've bought literally 100 cases of 3.5 grams that cost $45, $50 each. We bought 100 cases of more, like maybe through a couple months, we bought like 250 cases of some product. That's something we're willing to do if the product's really good and we know who's going to buy it. But I can't tell you like, hey, that's definitely going to happen. If I've never tried the product, if my customers never tried the product, it's really trial, it's really quality, it's really the genetics, all those kind of things. So it's a lot goes into it.
Agreed.
Awesome.
Yeah, totally.
We're skipping Mike West's question because we asked that first before I ordered it by most popular, and we'll go to Dale Wirtz, who asks, what do you want to see the micro tax bracket at compared to the corporate companies? How should this be laid out? Well, that's a pretty hard question to ask because it's like there's a lot of different moving parts here. Janine, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah. The excise, it should be like alcohol. So they force us to have the same inefficiencies of a product that does not degrade over time. In fact, a lot of alcohol gets better as it ages, and they tax us more, and they tax us more aggressively. So like even looking at a model like craft breweries, right, where they're taxed based upon their volume, that should be the sliding scale. They should figure out a taxation model that's based upon the volume the producer produces, not just a flat tax. Because while these publicly traded companies can continue to raise money and have their shareholders float the company while they sell cannabis at a loss, these micros do not have that kind of runway. So to treat us all the same, we're not playing the same. The rules of engagement are very different for a pubco and a micro producer. So they should be treated differently. They should be treated differently through and through.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody can share the Stand for Tax website, or not tax, Stand for Craft website, I'd appreciate that. Nick, if you're still on here, I know you like to share links. There's the whole movement that kicked off with one of our episodes that we did with Dan Sutton, I don't know, like 3 months ago or something, around highlighting the issues around the taxation on a federal level, where it's $1 or 10%, whichever is more. Which is kind of crazy when your average selling price for cannabis now is $2 or $3 a gram. It's like that dollar is now pretty high. And if we're talking about outdoor cannabis, where sometimes it's very common to sell it for 75 cents a gram, you're charging $1 tax at excise for 75 cents a gram. Already the government's making more money than the producer, and we haven't even, that's only the first of the many markups that exist. So yeah, that needs to change. And the one big issue around the excise regime is that it takes an act of parliament to change. So if you want that to change, and I hope all of you listening do, talk to your MP. They're the only person that can change this. Make it clear to them why this is a problem, why this is hampering people from being able to succeed, why for any of you cultivators who are just cultivating that don't do processing, if you've been really like affected by the prices that your processors are buying at, a huge part of the reason that they buy it at such a low price is this excise duty situation. So yeah, talk to your MPs, help them understand. I've talked to 2 different MPs in the Kootenays, and both of them, one being NDP and one of them being conservative, both of them were shocked to learn about how the regime is structured, and they've both agreed to essentially talk to representatives within the financial and health ministries to understand what's going on, and we're working with them. We being the Kootenay the Kootenay Cannabis Economic Development Council are working to get that change made, because we think that's going to be pretty critical. So, and all of you guys can talk to your MPs as well, because common sense is not on the side of the current policies, and it's a pretty easy case to make. All right. Dipanjan Nandi, sorry if I butchered your name there, asks, what's your guys' thoughts on corporate stores taking advantage of buying power and getting better deals than the small store? So the cost of the same product will have 2 different costs to 2 different stores, and hence the margin. In Alberta, it's already messed up. Nandi from Spirit Leaf, Edmonton. I don't know anything about this, so I'll just leave this. Maybe Sydney and Colin, you guys being retailers, might. Do you guys know what he's talking about or she's talking about? Or have you had this experience before?
Well, if this is about if this is about direct distribution specifically, I mean, I'm not even 100% sure, but would the producers be able to sell it at a different price to the retailers? Like, I think because they have to register or whatever. I don't know if they could even sell it at a different price to the producers.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're allowed to discount it. I think it's considered a promotion. But what does happen is the pay to play. And there are companies out there, some of these larger chain stores, I'm not going to name them, that do where they pay you pay them to join their data program, and then they'll bring your SKU in. So, like I've had it proposed to us, it could be $200 a store. But then when I asked, well, what kind of volume do you move? And they said about 4 cases a month. And I was like, if we take $1 a gram and there's 42 grams in a case, that means that we're going to make about $168, and we're going to pay you $200 for the pleasure of you bringing our product in, right? So it's just, it's wild. Like, so yeah, these stores are out here and they figured out how to skirt the Health Canada regulations with pay to play. And it's been reported to BC, LVD, AGLC, OCS. They do nothing. They've done nothing about it. That these stores will say, subscribe to our data program and we'll bring your product into our stores. Now this disproportionately harms small producers without that budget and benefits large conglomerate pubcos.
Yeah.
So this is a problem happening in our industry right now. It's already happening. And we have producers subsidizing retailers, and then the retailers in turn bring their product in and sell more of it.
Right.
Sarah, to answer your brief question in the chat there, this is still being recorded. The entire conversation is going on YouTube, and I think there is a lot of gold in the chat as well. So I'll go through and copy that as well. Sarah is a lovely representative from the Cannabis Secretariat's office here in BC. She attends quite a few of these podcasts. We've had people from the LCRB and the BCLDB here today, and it's been awesome to see government attending as well and getting to hear our thoughts. We've been really stoked to have many different policy analysts within the government come be part of these conversations, and and really listen. Like I said, there's quite a few people in the government that really do want to listen and do a better job. And for you guys, I am so thankful. And hopefully we can get the BCLDB to transition to the same kind of attitude. All right, next up we have Joe de la Plante. Don't know how to pronounce your last name, but I like the way I said it. Assuming logistics cost of direct to retailer raises shipping cost for the producer processors, multiple small shipments versus one large shipment to LDB. If that's the case, who absorbs that cost? Will the processor eat into their margin, or will cost ultimately be passed on to the consumer? And maybe this can be like our second to last question, because I'm personally running out of steam here. I see Abian has a question that's been upvoted there. We can do that one next, and that'll be our last question. Sorry to anybody else who has less than 4 points in your question.
Well, right now retailers pay for shipping from BCLD.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. So could you tell me, this I'm curious about. How much do you pay for shipping, Sydney, and how much do you pay Colin? Because I wonder if it's the same or different.
I am curious about that. On my bigger orders, so for the 2 stores, their orders vary significantly because one store is a lot busier. For my one store, on about an $8,000, $9,000 order, I'm probably paying about $110 to $120 in shipping.
So the way that I've done, at least, like I help out with orders. I'm not the main person that does orders, but when I've put in these orders before, we'll put in several orders throughout the week. So like we might have like an order, like even several orders through in a single day. And usually what it says is that shipping cost each time is literally like $10, I think. So I think if I was smart about it and I group them all in there, I think it might go by weight. It might end up getting a little bit more. But again, because we literally are down the road from Richmond, where the warehouse is, I believe, I think that our shipping costs, it makes sense that they're probably a little bit cheaper, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, from my experience, at least ordering products, it's usually based on how many orders I'm putting in, and then maybe they conglomerate that at the end. But I do know that it's like an inconsequential number, thankfully for us.
Okay, so that's going to go way up on direct delivery.
Yeah.
So like,
if I'm getting the product shipped from the interior as opposed to down the street.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, all I can relate it to is mailing boxes back in the day. But I guess $50 at Pure Later on a quick overnight for about four cases or something to you, Colin, and that's going up significantly. So these are the conversations, these brass tacks that people are not happy. We need to get down to the numbers. We need to get down to the costs, and we need to get down to the profit, because otherwise we're not going to figure out how to make this viable. How much of that will the retailer take for the benefit of having that product before any other retailer in your region? How much of that shipping cost are you willing to eat, and how much would we subsidize? So these are the conversations we're going to have.
Yeah,
so
and
Janine,
if that, go ahead, Sydney.
Sorry, just quickly. So say if I'm ordering direct delivery from somewhere that's 30, 40 minutes away from our stores, do you think that our shipping costs would significantly go up, or do you think that would stay around the same?
I feel like it would go down personally, because let's say you want to buy from Sweetgrass Cannabis, and they're in Weimar, right? So they're what, like 20 minutes, 30 minutes away from your store. Like if I was Sweetgrass, I would be like, hey, we have a truck. Can I drive my truck to your store and drop it off? And I feel you would say, yes, that sounds like it would be a lot cheaper than going through a shipping thing.
Totally. Well, I guess, that's like my question. Would stuff like that, is that going to open up? Like, would, the grower be able to be like, hey, we have it ready, we can just drive it over to you? Is it going to be able to be as casual as that?
I got my Thule locked and loaded. I'll fill it up with cases and drive them out, Sid, any day.
Amazing. Okay, cool.
I got a couple transpo queens on staff, so we can always get it done. But the thing is, like, it's there's a cost to that. There's a cost of fuel. There's costs here. There's additional costs.
Yeah. Well, and I'm paying the employee and
there's additional insurance now as well, because now you have to pay insurance on the whole transporting process, even if it's just you yourself. What if you got in a car accident?
Totally.
What if something happened? Like now you have to insure that delivery, and that's stuff that I presume that was part of what your 15% went towards. I think I really, really hope that they do away with that. Like, for me, like the amount of effort that it takes to verify whether or not somebody has grown cannabis legally, that they have all the licenses in place, that they have the COAs in place, that shouldn't be more than like 2%, maybe 3% at a maximum to really cover those costs. If they want to keep 15% for their centralized model, great. I mean, there is actual costs involved in centralized distribution. I would hope that at a 15% cost, they can at the very least get refrigerators so that they can keep the perishable goods at a at a standard where it's not going to degrade, and get freezers for all of the extracts so that they don't degrade. But yeah, that if the 50% became 2%, now you have room to have 5 to 8% to deal with all of the logistical costs, all the insurance costs, and both parties save money.
Totally.
Increase their
and like,
profit
I'm not
margins.
even worried about saving money on our end. I would just, of course, not love to spend a ton more, but mainly, like, I just don't want to see all of the micro cultivators unable to continue. Like, I've been so happy with all the products that we've seen coming out of there that it would just be so heartbreaking to just watch them one by one shut down because the government's so concerned about making more money, and we're so concerned about saving, $3 per product that we're bringing in or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, and I would like to say this could also, if there was more money to go around to the producer, but I understand the 15% is not on the table. The Secretariat's office has made that abundantly clear. It's a hard no. They're going to take it no matter what. Had they done this differently?
Well, Janine, I wanted to stop you there for a moment. That's their attitude right now, but with enough pressure, I do think that can change. There's no such thing as a hard no in public policy. There's just we can always dial up the pressure and change that. And
we do, and we are. But
Totally.
what I'm saying is it could create local jobs, especially in a rural area where we've had a lot of small businesses be disproportionately harmed over the last 2 years from lockdowns and whatnot, to create more local jobs, where we could hire people for the logistics department, hire delivery drivers locally, right?
Yeah.
Not just for BCLDB in the Lower Mainland. So I think that would be a really wonderful thing if there was eventually a budget there.
Yeah.
Sydney, your cat's really cute, and I'm sad that she's not in the frame anymore, or he. And
he was going for the keyboard. So I had to send it.
Okay, we have a very final question from Abian. I don't know how to pronounce your last name. Let's go with Shupkanji, who was one of our guests in a previous panel we had that was processor focused. We actually had the founder of Janeen's company, joint venture Craft Cannabis, Ben Williams, was here, as well as 2 people from Shelter, Abian being one of those 2 people. And we had a very, very eye-opening, informative conversation there that I'd encourage you guys to take a look at if you're curious. But the very last question is, do customers understand that some brands in the market don't cultivate or process cannabis? If they do understand, do they care that the brand they are buying from doesn't actually handle any of the cannabis?
I think that depending on the customer, I mean, I still have customers that walk in and don't have a care in the world about what I want to say. They're going to look at my menu, choose what they're buying, and they're out the door. They literally don't care where it's grown, who's growing it, anything. They're just coming in to get high. So those people aside, I definitely have, through educating our customers, a lot of our customers do understand that some of the brands aren't cultivating or processing the cannabis. I don't really think that it's a huge concern. I've never had anyone raise concerns like, as long as there's good information available for us, we can educate our customers, and the cannabis is good product at the end of the day. I don't really think anyone has issues. I think some of the issues for myself and my team lie in not being able to get information because the brand isn't cultivating or processing. You can kind of tell that there's a disconnect from where they are sourcing that cannabis. We're not actually getting the genetics. We're not getting terpenes. We're not getting some of this information because they're not the ones to be processing or cultivating it. I'm seeing that happening less and less as we're just improving and getting more communication out there. But yeah, I don't think it's a huge concern in general or anything.
I think if the product is good, it doesn't necessarily matter. I think that these, I don't know what we want to call them, but if they're third-party brands or, curators that are putting out products under their brand that they didn't necessarily grow, I think it's up to them to really make sure that their product's consistent as well. Because if you're sourcing from 3, 4, 5 different growers and it's all coming under your brand, you want to make sure that your second drop is just as good as the first drop. There has been some confusion, as Sydney said, like it's all about educating your consumer. So we've educated our customers that, maybe some of the stuff that was coming under the joint venture brand, there's different brands. You can even see the brand name listed on it, like, hey, these are grown by different people.
Yeah.
Or if, when it comes from Pistol and Paris, so some of these are grown from this grower, some of these are grown from this grower. If people learn to know what drops are from which grower and these kind of things, I think the customers who really care will take enough time and they'll ask the questions to understand. I think the people who don't care, they won't ask the questions, they'll buy the product anyway and they'll enjoy it. I don't think it's a problem necessarily. And I think if we're looking at other industries outside of cannabis, separating the operations, the growing, the production of the product and the marketing of the product actually isn't that rare. Like a lot of times that's something that a lot of other industries do. And I think it allows each person in that equation, or each company in that equation, to really focus on what they're good at. If a company is good at curating products and they're good at marketing those products, they're good at the communications. Like sometimes I've found even the opposite of what you said. Like sometimes these curators are even better at communicating with us because they're not completely busy with growing the product and doing all these things. Like that's their job, is to contact stores, to have those relationships, to build the market, to build the brand. And I think that separating that is not always necessarily a bad thing. I think there's always going to be a segment of consumers who are like, why would I ever buy for your brand? You're not the grower. Like this is fake. You're trying to pull a whatever on me. But I think that segment's very small. I think they're very loud, but I think they're very small.
And there's a lot of there's a lot of growers out there who just don't want to deal with the challenges. I mean, especially you look at Health Canada and their requirements for a processing license, like the huge costs and barriers involved just to package your own cannabis. And and then you look at all these micros who've applied for that, who have been waiting for months, years to get their micro processing license. And when you get that, you need to then spend months waiting on a sales amendment to be able to sell anything. And you have the ridiculous recall charges. And and then on top of that, now you need to start marketing yourself. And so somebody who's like a single individual, or just 2 or 3 individuals who love growing cannabis, that's what they're passionate about. They got into it because they have loved ones who are struggling with cancer and they just want to be able to help. And they found this passion for this plant. Like there's a lot of those people who just don't want to deal with that. So I think you're totally right, Colin. There's a huge need, a necessity to have these kind of brand houses, so to speak. Hopefully they're being transparent and honest about what they're sharing and not just trying to pull a sneaky on you. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I think a lot of the brand houses and the collectives maybe got like maybe a bad name at the very initial start of all of that. But I think now we're realizing that, as long as they're transparent and they're giving you the information you need to make informed purchase decisions, it's not a bad thing for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Colin said. I think when I was speaking towards that, I'm talking about some of like the really bigger budget brands where it's like, you don't know what strain it is. You don't really know anything about it. It's somehow the exact same THC every single time we get it, has been for 3 years. That's more so the stuff that I'm like hesitant on. Yeah, but stuff coming from Joint Venture, BC Black, all of these guys, like amazing. I'm getting the most information I've ever gotten out of anything from these websites and these people. So I'm super happy about that side of things.
Awesome, guys. Well, to everybody here today, thank you so much for being here. Sydney, Colin, Janine, thank you so much for your time. This has been one of the more eye-opening conversations that I've had. To everybody here, please do circulate this widely once we release it on YouTube. Next up for episode 20, we're going to be focused on the world of accounting and how it relates to craft cannabis production. We have Kayla Mann, who is the CFO of Habitat Life. We have Dan Mallett. He's the CFO, one of the co-founders of Alberta Bud. And we also have Luke Biles, who's been a partner at MNP, and he does his own podcast series, like 3 a year. That's like the processor panels, I think they're called. Pretty fantastic content there as well. But yeah, so if you're curious about the financial relationship between the whole taxation regime, all that kind of stuff. We'll be talking a lot about that with some really talented, smart CPAs and accountants of different kinds. And we're going to get into the nitty gritty of what the reality is for small scale production as it relates to accounting. I'll share a link to that episode right here, right now. So if you feel like registering for that, it is right there. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the like and subscribe button. We're growing our channel with awesome content like this, and yeah, this has been awesome. Longest episode we've had yet, and it's been brilliant. Thank you guys so much. And any final things you want to say, Colin, Janine, Sydney, before I hit the end event button?
I want to say, just thank you to you. Thank you to everyone who listened. And also just thank you to the advocates, the activists, and like the organizations, including people like Acres, that push this forward. We wouldn't even be having this conversation about direct delivery if there wasn't a lot of people pushing a lot of hard work behind the scenes. So thank you to everyone that make that possible and make it that I can sell weed for my job. So thank you.
Yeah,
Amazing.
second that. Thanks for sure.
Yeah, we just have to be grateful that we're even here. It's not perfect. Now, we've done a lot of slamming BC because direct delivery was the focus, talking about what's wrong. Let's just celebrate. We've been getting micros to market about 6 weeks faster than before. BCLDB has made some real change, and they are by far the preferred provincial distributor to deal with across Canada. So let's go ahead and
I've heard that from other processors too.
Thank you.
Yeah,
they're doing great work over there as well. They're trying.
Totally.
So
I can see the
BCLDB,
improvements.
if you're listening to this and you've gotten all the way through, we don't think you suck. We think you are, all things considered, doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
But we think that we have this opportunity here to really transform the BC economy, the cannabis sector, and allow all of the legacy growers, the legacy retailers, everybody that's been involved for a long time that wants to go legal, to actually make it viable for them. That's what's on the table here, and I hope we don't squander that opportunity.
Thank you.
For anybody in the audience, I've just shared a link there to our YouTube playlist of all the previous CertiCrafts. If you're curious to watch more, you can check it out there. I'm going to hit the end event button, and what's going to happen is in about a minute or two, this this podcast platform is going to automatically start replaying from the start. So if you missed the beginning and you want to check it out, just keep hanging out. The chat will stay open, and it'll just restart right away. Thank you all for being here, and until next time.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye.